So today we're going to talk about a really significant concept in Islam, Awrah. We're going to unpack not just what it means, but really get into the core philosophy of dignity behind it. Let's dive right in.
You know, right from the get-go, this quote is so important. It challenges a pretty common misconception. The whole idea of Awrah isn't meant to be seen as something negative or shameful. No, instead, it's framed as a source of dignity and honor, which is a really powerful way to look at it.
So before we even get into the specific rules, we have to understand the thinking behind it all. This isn't just about a dress code. It's about a much broader philosophy centered on dignity.
Yeah, so it's not just one thing. The practice of Awrah is seen as a way to actively bring about these four key values: dignity, respect, protection, and of course, self-respect. It's really all about honoring the human body and helping to create a respectful community.
Okay, so this brings up a really good question. If the whole point is dignity and respect, then why is covering the body considered the way to get there? What's the connection?
Well, it really boils down to two core reasons. First, from a faith standpoint, it's a divine command. It's believed to come from Allah and to hold wisdom and benefit for people. And second, on a more practical, social level, it's about protecting one's honor and encouraging an atmosphere of modesty and respect for everyone in society.
Okay, so before we jump into the specific guidelines, there are two key terms we've got to get straight. Once we understand these, everything else is going to make a whole lot more sense.
So first up, the main term itself, awrah. And notice how the definition connects the act of covering directly to those goals we were just talking about, protecting modesty and maintaining dignity. It's a very intentional link.
The second word you need to know is mahram. Now, this concept is absolutely crucial, especially for understanding the guidelines for women, because the rules change depending on who she's with. A mahram is basically a very close relative that one can't marry.
All right, let's get practical. How is this actually applied? We'll start with the guidelines for men, where the rule is pretty consistent and straightforward.
So, for men, the area of Awrah is specified as being from the navel down to the knees. And here's an important little detail. While the navel and knees themselves aren't technically part of the Awrah, they should still be covered. It's just to make sure the entire area is properly concealed.
So, a natural question here is, what about kids? Does this same standard apply to young boys too?
And the answer is a clear yes. The guideline is consistent for all males, including young boys, so it's that same area from the navel to the knees.
Okay, now let's turn to the guidelines for women. And this is where things get more contextual. It really depends on the situation, and that's exactly why understanding the term mahram was so important.
This table lays it out pretty clearly. There are basically three primary scenarios. First, during prayer, a woman covers her entire body except for her face and hands. Second, if she's around men who are not her mahrams, she also covers her entire body. But finally, when she's with her mahrams or with other women, the requirement is actually the same as it is for men, from the navel to the knees.
So, let's bring this all together and circle back to that core idea we started with. This practice isn't framed as a weakness or a limitation at all. In fact, it's seen as a form of strength and empowerment.
And that's really the key takeaway here. From this perspective, following these guidelines is a two-part act. On one hand, it's an act of faith, following a divine command. And on the other, it's an act of self-respect, intended to protect one's personal honor and dignity.
Which brings us to this powerful final thought. Modesty isn't seen as weakness. It's considered a strength, a virtue that actually brings honor not just to the person, but to their whole community.
And that leaves us with a bigger question to think about, doesn't it? No matter the specific context, how do shared ideas about dignity and honor actually shape the way a community interacts, the way it protects its members, and how it values them? It's a really fascinating thing to consider.